Hi there, Tracy, back with another scrapbooking process video. This time I'm scrapbooking from my stash, and today's layout was inspired by techniques that I learned in Crafty Jenn Schow and Irit Landgraf's class, which is called Make an Impact, Simple Techniques for Striking Layouts. And today's layout came together a little bit slower than usual for me because I was working a little bit outside of my comfort zone, which is what classes are all about, to teach us new things. And so let's get started right away. So I'm scrapbooking this photo, which I have modified using the software that I use. I use iPhoto for my photos, and I just put the instant filter on it, which I don't usually use filters on iPhoto, but I wanted this photo to have an old-fashioned washed out look. And so when I trimmed it up, I trimmed it so that it was in the shape of a Polaroid. And now I've pulled out the Shake It Off kit from the Scraptastic Kit Club, and I'm going to combine some of the, I knew I wanted to use kind of some yellowy washed, really faded looking colors. I wanted this to look very soft and feminine. And so I knew that kit was, well, it was one of my favorite kits. And so I left it as a kit when I was finished using it. And so I'm just reacquainting myself with this kit. It was from November of 2014, so it's fairly old. And what I really love about it is that it has lots of papers from the Maggie Holmes collection. I think it was the Bloom collection, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was the Shine collection. I can't remember, but it was one of the Maggie Holmes collections that was around in the fall of 2014. Anyhow, I can't remember which collection is which anymore. Anyhow, there's lots of beautiful crepe papers in here. And so the class that I was inspired by is the pattern class in the I guess the pattern lesson in the Make an Impact class. And so I'm just taking chunks from some of the pattern papers that I love the most from this kit, and I'm going to go into some of my stash as well. Not all of the papers are going to come from this kit. So I love this paper from Webster's Pages with the feathers all over it, and I figured I'd probably use some cardstock from this kit too. And then you saw me cut apart some patterns up there. I'm going to go through a couple of iterations of which patterns I want to work with, but you see I have some star paper. That blue and gray polka dot paper is from Gossamer Blue, and then I have some heart and some text paper from Crate Paper pulled out. And what I was just doing was going through my stash. That's why I'm missing here, is I went through my stash and I pulled out the Thinking Out Loud kit because that has some Fancy Free, and I really wanted to pull in some of the colors from the Fancy Free. And also I liked that Fancy Free had a white base as opposed to all of the other things that I had pulled out up until then had a cream base, and I want to add white into this layout. And so mixing creams and whites is a little bit challenging. And so I'm going to pull out this black and white pattern paper. These are Scraptastic exclusive papers, and then the white and black paper. It adds a little bit more contrast than some of those softer patterns that I had already picked out. And yeah, and then I picked out some papers from the Sweet Jane kit as well, although then I went back to these Fancy Free papers that I love so much, and this one is also Fancy Free. And so in one of the videos from the pattern class, Irit, she cut a whole bunch of, well, she already had a whole bunch of scraps of paper, just little tiny pieces, and she pieced them together into 3 clusters, and then she put those 3 clusters on a larger piece of paper that was more of a neutral, calm pattern. And I thought that this pattern might become calm if I put stuff over it. I don't know what I was thinking here. I actually don't really care for this pattern paper at all, and I'm not entirely sure why I'm deciding to put a pattern that I don't entirely like. Now that yellow piece of paper, don't worry, that's not going to be on the layout at all. I'm really just using that to get a sense of scale. I want to know how big a 12 by 12 piece of paper is so that I know how big I need to cut these pieces of paper. So I'm so used to scrapbooking with large scraps of paper that I cut these pieces quite a bit too big for what I'm wanting to do with them. So that's why I'm just hacking them down as I go. And there are some duplicates, so I'm not minding if I repeat some patterns, but what I'm trying to do is I'm coming up with 3 clusters, and I'm really not doing it the way that Irit did it at all. And so I'm not really liking it because of that. And I'm not realizing that what I've done is I've kind of slipped back into my old habit, which is really the whole purpose of wanting to replicate what Irit did, was because she did something so different than what I did. And so what she had done was she spread all of the patterns out so that they were really loosely put together, and I'm really tightly layering them. And I'm not really realizing that until a little bit later. So here I am, see me, I'm spreading them out a little bit more. It's occurring to me that, wait a minute, this is just little piles of what I always do. It's not, it's not something new. So I'm kind of pulling myself out of my default way of thinking. And then I thought maybe I'll go vertical, and that didn't look right at all. So now I'm going to go back to a kind of like a general horizontal layout. I have that feather Webster's pages as my background. And then I have those 3 little stacks of pattern paper that I'm going to cluster. And I've kind of, I've kind of pushed them all aside and lost those 3 clusters, but that's okay. I'll come back to them. So what I'm going to do is trim up this. That's going to be my background paper, is that large pinkish reddish raspberry, I guess, colored cardstock. And so I'm going to trim this off with my trimmer so that it's nice, true square corners. And I'm going to use it like this, but see how the bottom of it is just a little bit too mustardy. So I've decided to take a piece of vellum, and I'm going to cover all of the more brownish parts of this paper and leave just the white tips of the feathers showing. And then I brought it over to my sewing machine, and I have blue thread in the top and white thread in my bobbin. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I ran out of white thread. And so blue is going to work with this layout. So I didn't bother trying to figure out another color. I just thought it was already loaded with blue, so I'm just going to go with blue. And I'm trying to be messy here. And I ran some straight stitches and some zigzag stitches down the side. Not down the side, down the bottom, across the bottom. So that's what it looks like. And for now, I'm going to leave all of those threads hanging because I can always trim them off at the end. But if I trim them now and change my mind, I can't really go back and add the threads. So that's what I'm doing. Now, again, I'm going back to cutting these papers quite a bit smaller. And I know I want to have a cluster of 3. That's how Irit did it. And I thought I'm already a little bit outside of my comfort zone, so I might as well stick with what the expert did and recommended and not try to kind of go too far outside of the box with this one. So this time, as I put together my 3 clusters, I'm trying to do it a little bit more spread out than I had originally had them, and this is good. This is I'm really liking this a lot more than the way that I had it a few minutes ago. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to have an element of gray in each of the clusters, so that that's the blue and gray polka dot, and then the gray and colorful heart pattern paper as well. And then I'm also trying to have an element of black and white in each of the clusters, and that's going to make it a little bit easier for me to mix the creams and the whites, as if I just make sure, because there's plenty of cream in the background and plenty of cream in the pattern papers that I'm choosing. So I just want to make sure that I have a black and white element in each of the sections as well. And right now I actually have 2 black and white elements. I have some black and white pattern paper in each of the clusters, and I also have that text black and white tag that I then cut. I had 2 of those tags, so I cut the tag off of one of them because I didn't really want it to be so repetitive that there were 3 tags, or I didn't want multiple tags, I just wanted the one. So I just cut it up so that it stands as a pattern paper. And I'm really struggling with trying to put these layers together in a spread out way, the way that Irit had it, because that doesn't come natural to me. I am good at at layering large pieces of paper so that they're spread out across a 12 by 12 space, but I'm really not good, and I didn't realize I wasn't good at it until I tried it. I'm really not very good at spreading out little chunks of paper. I just want to clump them all together and have just little edges showing out. That's what comes natural to me. So I'm really trying to do this anyways, to like make it spread out the way that she had them. And so I just thought I would start. I wasn't entirely happy with how it looked, but I thought I would just start gluing them together anyways, and then we'll see how it goes. And so I decided that I liked that bottom one. Actually, once I glued it together, I quite liked it. So then I just tried to replicate that with the other two clusters and just kind of put some glue on it and try to spread it out. And so I like those two so far. And I think taking off some of the layers really helped me to spread them out quite a bit more. This little cluster covers more space than the others, so it has more layers on it than the others. And so I'm just slowing this down a little bit to half speed, to like, I guess, twice speed, so that you can see what these clusters look like. And so each layer has some black and white. Each cluster has some black and white. Each cluster has some of that grayish color, like the blue and gray polka dot, and then the heart and gray pattern paper down in the bottom left-hand corner. And so, and then each cluster also has some patterns that include some pinks and stuff, and that ends up being the fancy free paper from Pink Paisley. In each of those clusters, there's at least one piece of that fancy free paper. And so I have some of that black and white text paper in each of the three clusters, and now I'm just going back to my sewing machine. And this is a tip that Irit gave in her video, which was to sew them down because it makes them look more like they belong there, like their placement was more intentional. And so I'm going to include some stitching on each of my three clusters of layered paper. And on this one, I'm actually going around the corner just to give it a little bit more interest. And I'm just going back and forth to make it be kind of like a doodly version of stitching. So back and forth using my backstitch button. And then just straight lines on the other two clusters. And just having that slight difference adds a little bit of interest to the page. I don't want it to be so repetitive that there's, it can look really contrived if you have three of every single thing in every single cluster. And so making it look a little bit different makes it just feel a little bit more natural. So I am cutting off some of my threads, but not all of them. Again, I'm going to go back at the end and cut off almost all of them, but you never know. I find that the threads add a wispy, whimsical kind of element, and I didn't want to remove the option of keeping them. So I thought that this photo needed a little bit more definition and contrast. So I'm matting it on not a black piece of cardstock, but a blackish gray. A very, very, very dark gray cardstock. And the reason I didn't pick black is because almost all of the elements on this layout have a washed out look. So if I went with a really crisp dark black, it would stand out a little bit too much. So I had this little piece of doily just on my desk from a couple of layouts ago, and I decided to stick it in there just for a little bit of interest. So now I have a tag on one. So I want something a little bit different in each of those clusters of pattern paper. So I have a tag on one and a doily on the other, and then I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with that top left one. It needs something a little different too, but I haven't quite decided. It's going to end up being a tag. A sticker and a tag. So these are Maggie Holmes rub-ons from my stash. They came in a kit, but as I mentioned, I'm kind of combining a bunch of kits. It's basically boiling down to a stash layout. There's so many things combined between my stash and several kits that it's a stash layout. I have Maggie Holmes rub-ons and Maggie Holmes stickers that I'm going to be using, and some Gossamer Blue stickers. And what I'm looking for here is some chipboard. And I'm realizing as I'm looking for chipboard, I thought, why don't I have any Maggie Holmes chipboard? Because I know the crepe paper collections always come with chipboard, and I love chipboard, but I do not have much chipboard at all. I'm realizing all of my chipboard is old. And so I really have to make an effort to buy the chipboard that comes with the collections, because I really love what it looks like. I know that you can use pop dots or layer several things to make it look like chipboard, but I really love the look of chipboard on my layouts. So I'm going to make an effort to buy more of that. And so I'm taking these floral stickers from the Maggie Holmes collection, and it's from the sticker sheet, and I'm just putting foam dots on them because they're not chipboard, so I want to make them stand up a little bit. And I'm just putting foam dots on all the little parts of it that stick out, and then also on the flat part, like on the big solid part as well. And so I'm spreading those florals out so that there's one in those two clusters, and then I end up with another cluster that doesn't have a floral, and there are no more floral stickers, but there is a floral rub-on. So I'm going to attach this floral rub-on onto this. It's kind of like a library card, and then this sticker becomes a floral element. And I'm going to do my journaling on it. And my journaling says, stealing a kiss while the kids are on the ride so we don't have to hear ew. One of my favorite moments. We had a freedom on the Midway this year that we've never had before, because our kids are getting to the ages where they like to run off and wait in lines by themselves. And I mean, we kind of linger and keep an eye on them, but they were spending a lot of time just off on their own with their cousins and with their grandparents and aunts and that sort of thing. So we were enjoying just kind of hanging back and chatting with each other. And it's kind of cool how when your kids grow older, you kind of get to reconnect with your partner a little bit more as you have just a little bit more free time. So I'm just playing around with these stickers. They're almost all Maggie Holmes stickers that I'm entertaining right now. And these also are Maggie Holmes embellishments with the little banner flags on them made out of ribbon. I love those. And so the one that says love you is very appropriate. And I want to bring some of those bold label stickers that are always in Maggie Holmes collections. This is one of my favorite things about the Maggie Holmes collection, is it always has a really nice assortment of label stickers that have gold foil on them and nice bold colors that pick up on the colors in the papers. And even though I'm not using any Maggie Holmes papers on this layout, the embellishments really go quite nicely with the Fancy Free and the Webster's Pages background. So I took this gold sticker, and I'm cutting it in two, and I'm going to use it in two different places as a little grounding element. I'm going to put it up there just to bring a little bit of interest up there. And then I'm going to use it down in the left-hand corner to ground the labels and floral stickers that are going to go around it. So this heart I picked specifically because it is that yellow color that shows up in the large floral up in the opposite corner. And I felt like I needed a bit more yellow over here, of that same kind of mustardy color of yellow. And then I'm trying to put a heart in each of the three clusters. So there's labels in each of the three clusters, and although, well, not, I guess a library card is sort of like a label. But yeah, there's labels in some of the clusters and hearts in each of the clusters. There's a floral element in each of the clusters, and there's certainly lots of repetition of color. And I didn't even really need to pay attention to the color other than in the case of that yellow flower, because these embellishments are all from the Maggie Holmes collection, and so all of these stickers and tags and stuff will all go with each other. So I just pulled out my word drawer there for a second, and I knew I must have a word that said love, and I have that large Amy Tangerine set, and it's called, the one that I have right now is called Today, And I'm going to take the word love, and then that other one that you see over to the left is called Grace, and it's the same font or very similar font anyhow, but the words are just slightly smaller. So I'm taking love from today, and then from Grace, I'm going to open that package up and take on the. And the title that I'm using for this layout, which is called Love on the Midway, and it actually is, the subtitle is I Found Love on the Midway, is directly taken from my Instagram. So that is the caption that I put on that photo when I posted it on Instagram. So I have love and on the, and I wanted to make Midway be a multicolored font. And I have some of these multicolored fonts and I really like them, but I don't get a chance to use them very often. So whenever I have something celebratory or carnival related, I always try to incorporate some of these multicolored letter stickers that I have a few different sets of. They came in kits over the years. And so these particular ones are called Celebrate. And they're, of course, stickers. And so I'm just trying to pick colors of stickers. I don't want to repeat any two colors. And I'm thinking I'd rather not use red, so I'm trying to keep on replacing and replacing until I can find a combination that doesn't include red and also doesn't include any doubles. But it turns out I had to use red because there just weren't enough options. So I'm going to use red anyhow, even though there's no other real red. Some of the pinks are so deep that they do look red, especially in the fancy free paper that's on this layout. So it works okay. It doesn't stand out too badly. I like how that looks right there on the bottom part of that fake Polaroid section of the photo. And I thought the word love could go in that little awkward gap that's showing up between the top and bottom clusters that are on the left-hand side of the layout. And I thought maybe I could put each of those like on and the on separate labels, but that's not going to be the way that it ends up being. I'm just zooming in a little bit so you can see a little bit more of the details of what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that one down. Now at this point nothing is glued down, and I'm aware of the fact that I've got lots of stuff all layered together here, and I don't want to go too much further without starting to glue some stuff down. So I had to refer to the photo that I took a little while ago, and I referred quite a lot to it because I really liked the way things were when I took that photo. So I'm going to keep on tapping my phone to get that to come up. I had to shift that tag over a little bit. Pardon me. And just shifting things around to get them overlapped in the way that I want them to be. And I don't mind covering up some of the ampersand, but not quite that much. So the story is not going to stay there, that little circle that says the story. And I stood up so that I could just have a look at the photo and make sure that it was straight-ish. And just gluing the I love you down. The I love you has some adhesive on it, that banner thing, and I just wanted to shift it down a little bit so that it was the way that it was when I took the photo. And as I go along, whenever I encounter a thread that's getting in the way and being a little bit distracting, I'm just trimming it off as I go. So I'm making that yellow flower so that it's mostly on the pattern paper. I don't want it to stick out too much. I want it to be nice and layered behind, like in front of that fancy free paper that it's sitting on top of. And then these two labels are going to be separate from each other. And I know that that gives me an awkward gap, but I thought I would go back and fill that in. And now as I put this floral down, I'm actually shifting it over. It's going to layer on top of my photo and under my title, but I'm moving it so that the circular part of that pink flower just stands right over the hole in this, like the circular hole in that gold sticker that's right underneath of it. So it kind of looks like it belongs there because the curve of the flower is the same as the curve of the sticker behind it. Just adding that label right there, and then the is going to sit right on top of the flower, and on is going to go on the label that's beside the flower. And then love is going to go right there. And that does give me a bit of a space there above love. That's a little bit awkward, but I'm going to put my beginning part of my title, or the journaling or subtitle, or whatever you want to call I found. So I really like how this title comes together. I like how love on the Midway looks like that. And I just put the yellow polka dotted heart right beside love so that it overlaps it a little tiny bit. And I placed my Midway stickers, letter stickers, so that they overlap the word, like the flower, and go right onto the Polaroid part of that, the faux Polaroid part of that photo. And now these are Mini Market letter stickers from my stash. I definitely wanted tile letter stickers so that they would not, I think that shaped letter stickers would get lost in this particular type of an environment. And so I wanted tile letter stickers, and I wanted the tiles where the outside, like the square part of it or the rectangle, was a color that was already in my layout, and that the letters were black, because I wanted it to be clear that this is sort of part of the title. It's a continuation of the love on the. So I found love on the Midway is the title. And now I'm just sticking down that heart, and most of these Maggie Home stickers have pop dots under them. And that's why I can move them around so freely without them sticking. And so now I'm at the top layer of embellishments, meaning, you know, these are the final touches that sit on top of all the other layers. And these puffy stickers are really cute, and I'm just going to spread them all around the layout. So the story is going to come over here and layer with the label that's over here. And I just put a puffy sticker on there. And now this puffy sticker has a phrase that's irrelevant. I think it says on my desk. So I just took one of the words from the Maggie Home stickers that says smile, and I tiny attached with my little stapler there the word smile over top. You can see the letter K, but it's so faint that you can't really notice it. So I don't mind it like that. And I like how that layers together. I'm just spreading these teensy weensy little puffy stickers from Gossamer Blue. I'm just spreading them all around my layout so that they show up every here and there. And then I needed something horizontal in that cluster with the ampersand. So I put the best time sticker, and then I'm going to put a couple of other word stickers right underneath of it. And that kind of softens that edge that was made by the ampersand tag. And now I'm just going back and filling in some of that awkward space between those two labels. I added the heart sticker that I had already picked out another time, and I'm adding some of these wood veneer circles from Dear Lizzie. They really coordinate nicely with the other items on the page already. The puffy stickers are I believe, from Gossamer Blue. Where are they from? Yeah, they're from Gossamer Blue. So I'm just spreading it so that each cluster has a wood veneer that's a little bit separate, like it's a little bit off of the layers, not entirely in every case, but I wanted it to be not too layered. And then each of those wood veneer circles also has a puffy sticker on it. And because I have two tags and one has string, I wanted the other one to have string too. So I just took the same string off of the double tag the tag that I had doubles of, and I just detached it and put it on this other tag so that the two tags match a little bit better than they otherwise would have. They have the same string on them at least. And they both have a black reinforcer as well to make them look a little bit more similar. So I'm going to layer this whole thing on this pink cardstock, but I'm first going to layer the whole thing onto a piece of white cardstock. And I'm doing that to give my hugely clustered and embellished layout a little bit of breathing room, so it doesn't just go straight from all these clusters of embellishments straight to the cardstock. There's going to be a little layer in between that's going to give you a bit of a break and breathing room for all of those clusters of beautiful stickers and stuff. So to make that look like it belongs, I'm going to stitch it down as well. So you're going to see me go to my sewing machine momentarily here. First, I'm going to add a tiny little cluster of items up in the top here. And again, that just makes it look like it's not so much of a last moment, oh, let's just stick this on a piece of cardstock. I want it to feel integrated, like that cardstock on the background belongs there. I'm talking about the pink cardstock. So I need something that's going to connect my white cardstock to my pink cardstock. And so those two layered stickers and this sewing is going to do that for me. And so I don't know why I didn't realize that this was going to be a problem, but I am stitching very, very close to the edges of my layout. And that big clump that is all attached to the Webster's Pages feather paper in the background, I didn't sew my finger. I just bumped it with the up and down mechanism of my sewing machine because I was trying to hold things back and sew in between things, and I just clipped my finger a little bit. That's all. You saw me kind of shake it because it hurt. It hurt a little bit. So because I was pulling things back as I was sewing, I ended up sewing quite crooked, and my white paper is not going to sit flat the way that I have it. And it's only going to occur to me in a few minutes here that I can pull that whole big clump of layers right off. I don't know why I didn't think of that before and just bring the white and pink cardstock over to my sewing machine. See, I could have left that whole thing off. And so that just taking it off allows me to sort out the problem that I had with the white paper not lying flat. And now I'm just going to put some extra interest by going back and forth in 3 different spots on this. So I started with the spot where those label stickers are, and now I know that one of my clusters is here, and I know that one of my clusters is going to be here. So those are the 2 other places I'm putting back and forth detailing of stitches, and a little bit more up here where these labels are. And now you see those extra spots because they show up more boldly, especially on the back where it's white on pink, but they show up a little bit more here. And I'm not cutting off the threads entirely, but I am cutting them short so that just a little bit of thread shows in all of the places where there were lots of hanging threads. And now I'm just going to trim off most of these hanging threads as well. I'm trimming off a little bit and having a look, and then trimming off a little bit more and then having a look. So you'll see how the overlapped messy stitching kind of lines up with my 3 places where I have clusters, except for the top. You know where those labels are? I didn't want it to look too, I thought it would look a little bit too contrived if I put those labels over to the left where the other cluster was. And so I just wanted something a little bit unexpected, and putting this cluster right here instead of over to the left made it be a little bit more dynamic because it's not what you would expect. So I'm just layering some puffy stickers up in that little cluster as well. And then these stars are from Crepe Paper DIY shop. And I think it's Crepe Paper or American Crafts, I'm not sure. Anyhow, I'm putting these cork stars in 3 different places. Well, 4 different places, I guess, because one is going up in that top little secondary cluster as well. And I'm just spreading them around the layout, and they add a little bit of, because they're such a sharp shape, they add lots of interest and like a dynamic energy to the page that wasn't there before. It was all very soft and flowery before that, and the stars add a little bit more impact, I think. And then I just wanted something a little bit more horizontal up there, so I put that gold word sticker up there. And now I'm going to show you guys this in a little bit more kind of up close now that it's all finished. I didn't do any splattering because I felt like this layout has so much on it. This is a very piled on layout. For me, this is a lot more decorated and embellished than most of my layouts are. So I just felt like it really didn't need splatter of ink on top of all of this sewing and different textures. I've got different shiny stickers and paper and wood veneer and puffy stickers and staples and string and so many different things, and cork. So I really love the detail that the stitching adds. I like that I stitched at 3 different points on this instead of just one, and which ends up making that stitching show up in 3 different kind of layers or levels, which I really like that detail. I wish I did more of that. I need to do more of that. So, and that was another thing that Irit talked about in her video. So I hope that you enjoyed this layout. It is something quite a lot different for me, but I really enjoyed it. It took me a little bit longer and I was quite indecisive, and it was a little, I'm not going to say painful, but it was definitely uncomfortable for me. But that's what taking classes is all about. And I think that's one of the things that we can really get from a class is the opportunity to push ourselves just a little bit outside of our comfort zone and to do things a little bit differently. And the first time you do it, it's hard, but then the next time it's a little bit easier to think that way, and a little bit easier each time, until maybe you can incorporate some of what you learned in the class into your own style of scrapbooking. So thanks so much for watching. I have linked the information for the Make an Impact class in the information section for this video. So take care and have a really great scrappy week.